Oxford, Mississippi, as Kentucky upsets number 6 Ole Miss in Oxford 20-17. Garrett, this was a game dominated by, I thought, Kentucky's defense and ability to stay on the field. Ole Miss drove the field, put up a touchdown on the first drive, and this is what they did the rest of the first half. 31 yards, 3 first downs, and a 6-12 time of possession. That was the rest of the first half after their opening drive touchdown. Lane Kiffin now falls to 2-7, I believe, when his teams score less than 10 points in the first half as a head coach at Ole Miss. So for Kentucky, it was a really simple formula. They just hung around, played solid defense, didn't get the big plays, didn't give up the big plays, and they just stayed on the field when they were on offense. They doubled time of possession, held the ball for almost 40 minutes. And Mark Stoops, man, this dude was crucified for being conservative a couple weeks ago against Georgia, not going for it on 4th down, playing the field position game, having a really cowardly punt at the end of that game, if I recall correctly. It's 4th and 7 deep in his own territory, and the man sends out the offense, and not only that, they chuck it deep down the field. Brock Vandergriff hits a receiver deep down the field and gets a 63-yard gain that set up the go-ahead touchdown. What does this mean in the grand scheme of things? I think we're underestimating Kentucky just a little bit. They've now played Georgia within a point and gone on the road to beat Ole Miss, but I don't think Ole Miss has business losing to a team like Kentucky at home as a 17-point favorite. And this kind of just brings back the same old narratives about Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. I think the problem with trying to judge Kentucky right now is we haven't seen a whole lot of consistency out of them because, yeah, they played Georgia really close and obviously beat Ole Miss here. They did get smoked by South Carolina, and that's kind of the weird sort of wart that's on their resume so far is, Kentucky really hadn't looked all that bad except for one game where they glaringly just got beat off the ball repeatedly. So was it just like a weird game? Was that their one, right? We talk about you get one where you get to look really bad. Is that just where Kentucky gets to look really bad for their one? Maybe, but I'm really not 100% sure what to think of Kentucky at this point. Obviously, incredible win. You'd much rather deal with that with a win than another close loss and trying to judge you based on, well, you almost beat Ole Miss, so pretty good effort, Kentucky. Good job. You're not doing that. You're getting to talk about this as a win. And so, I think this is a team that's going to have to probably hang its hat on defense for the rest of the year. They probably don't have the explosive level of offense to compete if they try to make this thing a track meet, right? They probably can't do that. But if they're going to play time of possession and going to try to hold the football, that's a really good recipe for beating teams that are better than you, right? Or teams that are more talented than you at the very least. Holding onto the ball, especially when you're going onto the road, taking the crowd out of it, getting to kind of just sit on it, take the, atmosphere out of the stadium and just kind of, hang out a little bit and play your little ball control offense. That's a great way to win games on the road. And it's a great way to beat teams that are better than you. So got to go hats off to Kentucky, obviously. Ole Miss, man, what do you even say at this point? That was so disappointing. This is you crushed the portal again. We're finally praising you for what you're doing on the lines of scrimmage. We're finally praising you for what you're doing both sides of the football. You're not just going and getting elite playmakers on offense. You're also finding good defenders and to come out at the beginning of your season and the first team that you play with a pulse, you lose. You put up 17 in your own house. That's embarrassing. I don't know what you even say about Ole Miss at this point. That's again, it's just embarrassing. You don't say anything about that. You just hang your head and you walk away and you say, we got to find a way to be a lot better because going into this game, they were the number 1 ranked offense and defense in the country in terms of scoring. And put up 17. That's not going to be good enough. That's just not going to be good enough against any team in the Southeastern Conference. And so they have to find a way to get better in a hurry so that we don't just sit here and say that they're a fluky team or they're, they can beat up the air, but they can't beat a team that's actually got a pulse. And they're going to have to figure that out quick because this isn't the only good team. I say only good team. If Kentucky can beat them, let's put it this way. If Kentucky can beat them, there's a lot more questions on that schedule than I thought there were for Ole Miss, and their aspirations for this season are definitely in question.
Yeah, and Garrett, it came down to 2 things for me. They couldn't stay on the field. They were 1 of 10 on 3rd downs, and they couldn't run the ball. They were held to 92 yards rushing. That's their lowest output in a home game since the Mississippi State game in 2022. Earlier this year, the rest of this year, they hadn't been held under 200 yards rushing when they were playing their Charmin Soft non-conference schedule.
Right.
So they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't stay on the field. And Kentucky ran the ball not well either. They only ran for 93 yards on 47 carries, but they committed to the run. They ran the clock. And Brock Vandagriff stepped up and made some plays when he had to, especially on those late drives there. So really bummer loss for Ole Miss. Obviously, they have some opportunities later in the year. We mentioned the game that they'll host Georgia in. They'll have some opportunities for some resume-building wins. But, yeah, they have South Carolina next on the road. They're on the road at LSU after that in back-to-back weeks, and they host Oklahoma. So got to get some things right really quickly against some formidable opponents to get back on track in the playoff race.
Because you can definitely argue that all three of those teams are better than Kentucky and can find ways to beat you, I think, with more different ways than Kentucky can. And so, like, while Kentucky did play a perfect game for what they needed to, if you're talking about ball control and running the football, South Carolina could definitely do that. If you want to talk about a point-scoring competition, LSU can go head up with you scoring points.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma just had a fairly impressive win going on the road today. And I know maybe that Auburn team isn't as good as a lot of other people think, but that still is an impressive win going on the road, winning on the Plains. That's still an impressive win for Oklahoma. So, look, they got to get some stuff figured out quick because I don't see a whole lot more wins on their schedule if they play like they did today.
Yeah. It's a tough schedule down the stretch. It's a tough schedule.
And they're talented enough to win. They are.
Yeah,
they are talented enough to win, and they should be better. This is why we do this, is we're saying, hey, what the heck was that? You should have smoked Kentucky. We were even joking in the preview, right? We were saying that
didn't think it would be a close game. I
did not think this
would be a close game.
Say that, oh, isn't Kentucky going to be the first test? And we're like, yeah, but aren't we always saying that Kentucky is a test, and then they always get handled? That's what we said on the preview. We kind of just joked past it because that's what it probably should have been for Ole Miss. It should have been just a joke past a moment, and it wasn't. They got beat. They got soundly beat. It wasn't, a massive point total difference, but they got beat off the ball. They weren't the team that they were supposed to be, and Kentucky played their style of football and won. If you're going to let other teams play their style of football this year, we'll see you in the Independence Bowl or something, Ole Miss. We're not going to have a very good season if that's the case.
Gracious, how about